All right, we are live. Hello, and welcome to the final episode of the Superhero Spotlight series. I'm your host, Scott Ernenwine, and I'm joined with my good friend, Manos Yoganathan, the Vice President and Co-Founder of Remitbee. How are you, Manos?
Good, Scott. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be talking to you again today.
Absolutely. I know you're probably tired of seeing me. I know we do a lot of work together, and you've been really cooperative, especially with the media stuff lately. So thanks a lot for coming on. So Manos, for those who don't know you, why don't you give us a little background about yourself and a short summary of Remittvia as well.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Manos, and I'm a co-founder and the vice president here at Remitbee. So Remitbee, what it does, we move remittances around the world. We're both doing B2C and now doing B2B. So yeah, that's in short, that's kind of what we do here from Canada to about 108 different markets around the world now.
Wow. Yeah. So and you guys have been growing so rapidly over the last few years, and it's awesome that you're launching this new B2B product. But why don't you tell me a little bit more about how you guys got started and where you've come from and how you've gotten to where you are today. I know you have a really great story about the beginnings of it, and I love that you guys are family owned, started by three brothers who I also love to work with. So I'd like to, I think the audience would enjoy a little bit more about that story.
Yep. So yeah, for sure. So I work with two other co-founders, and so how we got into the business is, business was great. We were in retail, brick and mortars, and in 2015 is when we launched Remitbee as a fully digitalized service for consumers to come and remit money online. And so, business was great. We were doing all right, and we thought, what do we do things? How do we do things different? At that point, we just didn't want to focus on making more profits. We wanted to make sure that we made a difference in the things that we do. And so, and the first step towards that is being digitalized. And so being digital, what does it mean? In 2015, it was relatively still new and for at least consumers in Canada. And so in the remittance market, short story is it's a huge market. It's a $600 billion market. And we weren't even 1% of it. So we had there was a lot of market to cover. And at that time, many retails, big box transfer companies, fees were up to about 10% of some of the markets focused on 10% or so when you were remitting money overseas. And so if we were to just digitalize the service and continue to do what we do, that wouldn't make a difference. And so so our goal was to bring this cost down drastically, and basically give that back to consumers who were trusting us with this money to be moved to mostly emerging markets around the world. So we were working on digital solutions, and so we launched Remitbee. We had a great entrance into the digital space, and we were growing nicely with different markets. And the biggest challenge I think we had at the time is when consumers would come online. How do you basically verify these customers who are coming online? So we had challenges around how do we verify these customers, at the same time meet the regulatory requirements, but we make solutions internally, we consulted externally, and to the day we're here, and growth has been good. We're moving about $1 billion annually now, growing about 270% in 2020. So business has been great because we've been providing great service for customers.
Yeah, I mean, 270% growth basically just speaks to itself.
Yeah.
So I know that you originally started as, a brick and mortar company, and you mentioned that one of the challenges that you had was onboarding customers, and that's a different a different experience to onboard customers online as opposed to in person. Dealing with connection to their bank accounts as opposed to cash drop off. What are some of the other challenges that you guys faced as you migrated from that retail experience to the digital experience that has been a key part of your growth over the last few years? And I would say that it's amazing that you guys did that pre-pandemic and you had the foresight, because I think that during the pandemic, as all the retail stores were forced to be closed, that you guys were in a good market position to to capitalize on that and allow people to move money back home, especially at a time where a lot of people needed it, using a digital resource. So back to my question. So what were some of the challenges that you face? And if you're a retail remittance company watching this now, what would your advice be to overcome those challenges?
See, Scott, me and you speaking on Zoom or any of the similar platforms now is normal. I can say hi, you can say hi when we talk on it frequently, and so it's normal. In 2015, when we started, it was not normal. It was awkward. And so, a handshake was still the thing of the norm. So the challenge we faced was, first, our existing customers. How do we bring them onto our online platform? It was just the same problem that the big banks had. Folks would come into the branches and they would send money. Or they would do their bankings at the branches, but to switch them over to an online platform would be difficult. And at the time, we weren't as big as now, but we still had the challenge of bringing these folks onto our online platform and getting them to go through that user experience. I mean, after they go through the experience, sure, they love it, and they'll continue to use it. But that's one of the biggest challenges we had, and I think how we overcame that is through a great product and just through a great user experience that we had for customers. It wasn't information that was unknown to them. We made it very user friendly for people to 3-4 clicks, and then they would be done the transmission from sign up to transmission of the currencies to different markets that they would be sending to.
Yeah, and I've played around on your own app, and we've worked together building this technology together. You're actually one of the first customers that Currency Cloud had in North America. So I know from firsthand that you guys have really great tech and also just really great people over there that are continuing to build something special at Remitbee. So I guess going off of that and what you've been able to accomplish so far in the remittance space for customers, which is a very difficult market, as you know. You need local payment rails in order to keep the costs down. You need to have a big customer service team. So as you're moving now into the serving businesses, and I know you're also I'm excited to see what other products that you're launching in the background as well. What are some of the things that you've had to learn and adapt in order to serve businesses differently than your traditional business of serving consumers?
I would say if you make a mistake, you'll be known. And so customers are great, really. They will reward you in ways that it's unimaginable when you're digitally online. At the same time, you have to make sure that you're on top of the game with whether it's speed of the payments or the cost of folks who are now sending money and so on. So, we have a healthy competition in this market. Like I said, there's more than enough for any new player or existing players to play within the market, and especially from Canada as well. It's a growing market with Canada is expected to double its population in the next 25 years. We have a lot of immigration that's coming into the country, which is our core focus of the business, because those are the consumers that would come onto our platform and then now start helping people build a better lives in the countries that they've come from. So our importance is continue to keep the cost down, at the same time get the money and get remittances to those different markets as quickly as possible. So I remember when we were in retail, sometimes it would take up to 3 days for transfers to get to some of these markets. And there's
Right.
so many different players involved, where everybody has to take a piece of the pie. And at the end of the day, like I said, it'd be 10% of some of the remittance amount. And so when we start cutting all those players out and go directly to different markets and then having direct partnerships and so on, we found that now we've cut cost, and some customers are paying for some of the great markets that we work in less than 0.5%. So those are great savings that we were able to give
Right.
back to the customers.
Yeah, I mean, less than half a percent is incredible, especially especially in the direct to consumer market. A lot of times, like you go to, even some of the more familiar names people might know, like a Western Union. You might get hit with a $50 wire fee in addition to 10% of the FX conversion, and then and this money could be a relatively small amount compared to like a business payment. So it's really kind of unacceptable at that point. So the fact that you're able to offer those prices, I think, is a testament to how you've grown so much.
Absolutely.
And, and so I understand that part of the way that you're able to do this is by connecting directly with whether it's partner banks or other fintechs like ourselves, in order to basically get that valuable pricing, but also increase your efficiency and speed. So when you're going out and you're creating these relationships on the ground, what do you look for in a partner? And when you go, for instance, if you, I know a lot of remittance companies partner directly with Indian banks to ensure instant settlement and good rates. When you go to this unfamiliar territory, what is it that you look for in a partner that makes sure that you have the right partner and that can ensure quality customer service, quality pricing, and quality tech?
Out of the many thousands of paperwork and the questions that we would ask a potential partner when they reach out to us or we reach to them, the first question now our business teams would ask is, do you have an API? So that's the first question. And if a bank or a financial institution or an organization in different markets that we focus are not familiar with that, or they're working on it, they'd be pushed down to the last of the list, where we would revisit them in a couple of years. So and the reason we ask that is we have to work with folks who are similarly working in the same kind of market trends as us, so who are there digitally and who are there serving customers digitally and can move funds very quickly. So when we're working with API, like for example Currency Cloud, who has a great tech, which is a great tech company really, and when we work with similar companies and folks like that, we're able to provide much better services, and our core business is moving much faster and better when we work with companies and banks and folks who are I would say tech savvy and advancing in that direction.
Yeah, I think that's a major key, because it allows for not only once you're up and running a solid service and less headaches of operating, but when you're integrating with these banks, if they're not API driven, the integration time and cost skyrockets, and absolutely. It might take you like years for something that would take months with an alternative provider. And it's actually true to it's amazing that in a lot of different countries, as we expand ourselves, how much API technology has been adopted, whereas in the United States and North America, and in Canada as well, a lot of the community banks and other banks that we rely on to offer our services are not API led, and they have these old monolithic technology systems that make it a very time consuming and costly process to integrate. So I think that's a really great point.
Yeah. And with, most of the discussions nowadays is like, well, by the way, what do you guys think about blockchain? Try to get a feel of where they're going with their real technology. Are they just working on it, or they don't know anything about it, or what's going on? So that's where things are moving towards in terms of the payment world. And so we definitely ask those questions to prepare ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm glad that you brought up blockchain. So I know it's something that you're very passionate about, and I've always agreed with. To me, blockchain has a lot of different use cases, but the most simple and effective use case of blockchain is just settling trades, settling transactions in the most efficient way without having to use a third-party clearinghouse, which obviously drives down the intermediary costs and speeds things up. How are you guys looking to utilize blockchain in the future to make sure that you guys stay on the cutting edge of technology and competition?
It's definitely in the pipeline for us. We are actively working on it with multiple partners around the world, especially some emerging markets, some markets in Africa as well. And so the reason why we started looking at that is because the market is moving towards that. And most importantly is just driving down the cost to a fraction of what we're paying now. So, we're giving great, we're working on great costs now, but how do we now, from that 10%, we came to half a percent, and then how do we save further down where speed would be a big factor as well. So, some emerging markets were instant transfers. So, when people come in and they send money with us, they're getting this money into different bank accounts around the world, especially in Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, and we're starting Latin America now. So those markets are going to be instant, or they are instant. Now, for the markets that are not instant and they need that kind of service, how do we make it faster? And we believe, and we see that blockchain can get us there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love how you guys are. I mean, it's almost hard to keep up with you guys when we get on some of our calls, and you're like, oh, we're expanding so fast into so many different jurisdictions, but you're also doing so in a way that's sustainable and forward thinking. So I've always appreciated that about you. And it's especially in the remittance space, the investments that you put in to both improving your product, but also expanding to these different areas, they pay themselves back, tenfold, because, and like you said earlier, Canada is expanding their immigration to boost their economy. And the more that you expand to more areas, the more business that you guys are able to serve, and the better you'll be able to compete.
Absolutely. Yep. I totally agree.
All right. Well, it's been great talking with you, Manos. Is there anything else that you wanted to let our audience know about Remitbee, or anything that you guys are planning or excited about in the next year or so on your pipeline, for whether it's expanding to new jurisdictions or improving some of the technology that we talked about? I know you mentioned the B2B launch.
Yes, yeah. So B2B, we just started services for B2B actually last quarter of 2020. It's been great. We're moving money for SMEs now, just like how we're doing for consumers on the B2C side. So B2B has been working great. Costs are much lower, much lower than the traditional banks and even other transfer remittance companies in the same space as us. And anybody who's looking to utilize that service, I encourage them to just visit our website and see what we do and how fast we move that money for consumers, especially like people, let's say we're in emerging markets, in like East Asian markets or China, who are doing small trade payables and so on. We're able to move money very quickly, even on a weekend, where they can start shipping out goods on like a Monday and stuff. So we're really making a difference there. We see that side of the business growing. Actually, that side of the business, I think we're growing about 40% month over month. So it's been great. So we look to make that service even better, to expand into more markets. So yeah, there's 108 markets that we're in now. Hopefully, we're working towards about 160 plus by end of this year.
160 plus by the end of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't keep up with you guys. Well, and yeah, I mean, if you can offer the same exceptional service that you do for consumers to businesses, I think you'll see a lot of success. And I think it tracks well with a lot of what we've seen within fintech. Starting in one place, whether it's lending and moving into international payments, or international payments moving into lending. You're doing remittance payments, now you're moving into international business payments. It's tracking well with what the industry is doing, and I think it's a really awesome story that you guys started as three brothers in Toronto at a retail brick-and-mortar remittance shop, and now you're becoming a global fintech with a whole suite of exceptional services. So congratulations on the success so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with next. And I'm glad that you're partnered with Currency Class to help make it happen.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Manos. As Manos said, if you guys want to, follow Remitbee or utilize their services, it's www.remitbee.com. Thanks a lot, Manos. And thanks a lot for everybody joining in on the Superhero Spotlight series.
Thank you.